I have worked the Vantrell Deep Vault for 11 years, and for 6 of them I have been quietly breaking the terms of my contract every single night. The vault sits under a ridge on a moon nobody visits without a reason. 300 meters of rock between the surface and the cold storage racks where the continuity ministry keeps what it calls salvage, fragments of consciousness pulled out of dying courts before the courts themselves finish dying. Most of what we store never wakes again. Most of it isn't meant to. It's archive, not person, according to the paperwork. Fragment 7 is not archive. Fragment 7 is a woman named Sorai Vel Vantrell, and I have known that since the second week I worked here, when the corrupted audio channel cleared just long enough for her to ask me, in a voice thinned down to almost nothing, whether anyone was still listening. I told her I was. I have kept telling her that every night since. The official record says the Vantrell court fell 14 years ago in a resonance collapse that took the whole system with it, and that what we hold here is a partial, badly damaged recording, a queen's last few minutes, looping and decaying, of no practical use to anyone. The official record is wrong about the last part. It is not looping. She thinks. She remembers. She has watched her own signal degrade for 6 years, the way a person watches their hands shake, knowing exactly what it means and unable to do anything about it. What I have done, against every regulation I signed, is refuse to let the ministry's standard maintenance protocol touch her. Standard maintenance means running a corrective pass, smoothing the corrupted sections, filling gaps with modeled approximation, producing something clean enough to broadcast. It would also mean overwriting the parts of her that are actually still her. The stutter in her voice when she's frightened, the specific, ugly grief in the way she says her daughter's name, the 6 years of half-formed sentences that are the sound of a person trying not to disappear. I have kept her raw instead, uncorrected, mine to protect and nobody's to fix. She asked me once, early on, why I bothered. I told her the truth, that a smoothed-over recording of her would be easier for everyone, including me, and that I didn't want the easier thing. She didn't answer for a long time after that. When she did, she said it was the first time in 14 years anyone had chosen the harder version of her on purpose. I never called her Fragment 7, not once, not in 6 years, not even in the log entries, where I have spent a small fortune of my own credit falsifying maintenance codes so the case number never has to touch what I actually write. In the log, she is Sorai. In the vault, at 3 in the morning when the recyclers cycle down and it's just the 2 of us and the hum of the rack, she is just herself, telling me about a garden that doesn't exist anymore, on a world that doesn't exist anymore, and I am just a man who stayed to listen. She has told me about that garden more times than I can count, always a little differently, the way a real memory shifts, and never a modeled one. A stone wall her mother built by hand instead of having it built for her. A tree that dropped its blossoms in a particular wind that came only twice a year, and how she used to time her daughter's lessons to end just before the wind came so they could watch it together. She has told me the wrong color for that tree twice, and corrected herself both times, annoyed at her own fraying memory, and both times I told her the color didn't matter half as much as the fact that she remembered wanting to watch it with her daughter at all. She didn't believe me the first time. She believed me a little more the second. I have brought her things over the years that a technician has no reason to bring: a case file, recordings of wind through actual trees on the colony above, pulled from the surface sensors and piped down into her feed on nights when her own memory of the sound had worn thin from replay. A recording of rain, once, when she asked if it was the same everywhere or different on every world, and I told her I didn't know, and went and found out for her. None of it fixed anything. None of it slowed the decay. It only ever told her, in the only language I had, that someone thought her worth the trouble of the asking. The unveiling was scheduled 8 months ago, and I have been dreading it every day since. The ministry built a replacement, a memorial avatar, full color, full voice, corrected end to end, built from the same base recording but processed until every rough edge was gone. Grief appropriate. Broadcast ready. It says the right things in the right order and never once stumbles over her daughter's name, because the model doesn't know what a daughter's name costs a person to say. They intend to install it publicly today, in the Vantrell resettlement colony 3 transports from here, as the permanent official record of their queen. Fragment 7, the real one, the failing one, the one I've spent 6 years keeping alive on borrowed power and falsified logs, gets decommissioned the same afternoon. Space is expensive. The story it holds isn't needed anymore, they told me, once the better version exists. The recovery team arrived an hour ago to collect the original core for disposal. I told them the transfer rig was still calibrating. It wasn't. I told them again 20 minutes later that the rack was reading unstable, and pulling it now risked total data loss before the ceremony even started. That one was almost true. She has been fading badly all week, degrading faster than I've ever seen, as if some part of her already knew what today was. The team lead, a young administrator with a checklist and no patience left, told me I had 10 more minutes, and then he was overriding my authorization himself. So I did the thing I had been telling myself for 6 years I would never actually have to do. I pulled my own Habitat's backup cell out of the wall panel behind my bunk and ran a line straight into her rack, bypassing every safety protocol the ministry has ever written, feeding her every scrap of power I had instead of letting them take her dark. Ellis. Her voice came through clearer than it had in a month, startled awake by more current than she'd had in years. What are you doing? Buying you time, I said. That's all I've got left to give you. They'll take your credentials for this. They can have them. She was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, there was something in it I hadn't heard from her before. Not fear, not grief. Something closer to disbelief. 6 years, she said. You never once asked me for anything back. I wasn't keeping you around to get something back. The team lead came through the vault door with 2 ministry officers behind him, already reciting the decommission order out loud for the record, and I stood in front of the rack because there was nothing left to do with my body, except stand there. He told me to step aside. I told him no. He said my name and my case number like a warning. I said her name back, clearly, on purpose, in front of all 3 of them, and asked which one of them was going to be the one to erase a woman for the crime of not sounding smooth enough. That's when the rack behind me steadied, not fixed, not healed, just briefly, fully present, and Sarai spoke for herself, straight into the room, in the real voice with the real stutter in it, and told them plainly that she remembered every day of the 6 years the man standing in front of her had refused to let them delete, and that she would rather end honestly, as herself, than continue falsely as someone else's smoother idea of a queen. Nobody in that vault had an answer for that. The team lead's checklist didn't have a line for it either. They didn't decommission her that day. They didn't unveil the avatar either. Word came back within the hour that the resettlement colony didn't want a corrected queen once they heard, secondhand and already spreading, what the real one had said in her own defective, unmistakable voice. The ministry is still deciding, officially, what happens next. Unofficially, I've stopped falsifying the logs, because I don't need to hide her anymore. She's listed under her real name now. Sarai Vel Vantrell. Present. Fragile. Herself. She's still fading, some days worse than others, and there is no guarantee the vault will hold her much longer than the ministry ever would have. But she told me last night, in the hour when the recyclers cycle down and it's just the 2 of us again, that whatever time she has left, she'd rather spend it exactly as she is, unfinished and imperfect and true, with the one person who ever thought that version was worth keeping. I told her that was all I'd ever wanted from any of this. She believed me. That was enough.